Hi, everybody. It's Susan, and I'm here to talk about the Sagittarius full moon, which is coming up. I'm recording this actually on the 1st of June, and this is the day that Venus is rising as the morning star for the first time. And this is a really beautiful day because Venus represents the positivity when she's in the morning star phase. She represents new starts, new beginnings. And so here I am after having moved back to Brussels, beginning my summer journey. And I'll be here for till the end of September when I migrate back south for the winter, back to Spain. So, yeah, I wanted to talk about a few things. Also, this is a really lovely full moon. Did I say new moon? I meant full moon. If I said new moon, it's a Sagittarius full moon, which is also itself very positive. So, some nice, good news to bring to all of you after a while of not really hearing good news. And also, I wanted to just mention a few things that are coming up for me. Before, in fact, the full moon arrives, I will be in Copenhagen doing a conference from the 6th till the 9th. My presentation will be on the 6th of June, which is Friday, Venus's day, and the 6th is Venus's number. And it's also the day that she enters into Taurus. So that's pretty cool. So all in all, a very Venusian time to open up a conference. I think whoever chose the election for the conference dates is doing a brilliant job because it's just a superb weekend for connecting with people and learning things and finding some benefit in the activities you do. So if you have anything that you'd like to organize for the weekend of the 6th to the 9th, unless you're in Copenhagen and want to come and see us, um, then consider that because it's absolutely brilliant weekend for something new, for connecting with people, and that's leading up then to the full moon. We'll talk about that in a minute. Rick Levine will be at that conference. I'm very excited to meet him. I've been following him for many, many years, since he was even presenting with his old dear friend Jeff Jowers, who has passed away in the meantime a few years ago. So very excited to meet Rick, and hopefully we'll be able to sit down and have a conversation and maybe even record a little video for everybody. We'll see because he's busy. He's doing the plenary on Saturday and Sunday. I'll be doing a bit of the plenary on Sunday as well. So do come along if you're in the neighborhood. That would be great to see you. Or you can watch maybe the recordings afterwards. I haven't got the details on how they're going to communicate all of that stuff, but hopefully they'll put that online. I'll let you know. And then I want to introduce myself because also what I'm presenting in Copenhagen is how to find the ancestors or the family lineage in the natal chart. And there are a lot of overlaps with charts in family patterns, but this is not about comparing charts. It's about finding your parents and their story and how that story goes back generations, the issues that they were grappling with, and how that affects you in your life going forward. And that often is the central issue that people are grappling with. And that's what the transits will reveal each time. So for me, it's just been an incredible tool to help people overcome things that seem to be going on for decades in their life. And so this is what I'll be explaining in the conference, very briefly, obviously. But it's also what I teach in the intermediate class, which is beginning on the 27th of July. So that's open now already. You can register for that. The details I will link in the description box, and I'll put all of the details for all of what I've just mentioned in the description box. So that's, I think, it for me. That's also the topic of my book, by the way. God help me. So when that book finally gets out, it's all about how to find all these things in the chart. So yeah, let's have a look now at this full moon in Sagittarius. Sagittarius, of course, is always very outgoing and optimistic, and this one is particularly special because it's the first full moon in 12 years, which is ruled by an exalted Jupiter. And Jupiter, of course, is the ruler of Sagittarius, and Jupiter is now just into Cancer at the time. So this full moon is taking place on the 11th of June at 8:43:50 Universal Time. It says BST, that's British Summer Time -1, which is Universal Time. It keeps switching over, and I wish if anybody from Astro Gold can help me understand why it won't allow me to keep Universal Time, I'd love to know. Anyway, so this is a really interesting time to be exploring big visions, new ideas. I will go sign by sign and explain for everybody how this might show up in your chart. And this is a good opportunity also to check back over time at how things have evolved for you over the last year and a half or even two, because it also ties into this particular lunar family, which is different, by the way. The lunar family that I'm about to describe is not the same as the lunations that come in alternance through the, can we say that? Alternates, alternating throughout the year, full moon and then the new moon, for example. There'll be a new moon. What's the date of the new moon? The new moon is 20th of December this year. So the new moon that's coming 6 months down the line is absolutely connected to this theme, let's say, of Sagittarius. And the new moon in Sagittarius will be on the 20th of December, and that's a 28-degree moon. But the families of moons hold the degree points, and then they just go back. The degrees just go backwards, one by one. So this particular family began on, and if you'd like to, you might note this down because then you can go back over your life and see where this is starting to reveal itself. A full moon is like a culmination. It's an awareness of something that may have reached its conclusion or its sort of apogee. It's something it's attained the best. You've got the best of it, let's say, and now it's time to reflect on how to wind down and either just set it aside or move into the next thing and preparing for the next cycle, which is the new moon cycle. It doesn't mean that everything has to end fully. It just means that there's less attention that needs to go in this direction. And you will start also to be more clear of this by the light of the moon. So obviously a full moon is an opposition from the moon to the sun. And the moon, the lunar light, is the reflected light of the sun. So that's why the moon itself, it's a reflection of the solar energy of consciousness in an astrological sense, in the metaphorical sense of the moon. So the moon represents our mind and our memory and the way that we think about things. And here, for example, in Sagittarius, it's whatever the topic of the house that the moon is found in that's going to be uppermost on your mind and how you're thinking about things, how you're grappling with all of these things. And the moon represents, issues around your body, your physical health, and also your mental health, your emotional health, memory, your mother, everything to do with elder women and mothers is moon. Home issues. What is home? And that applies when you're listening for your sign. If I'm talking about it from the moon, if it's your Sagittarius moon that you're looking for, it's that you're feeling. It's what's more internalized rather than the more solar outward driven sun. So the sun itself is consciousness. In astrological terms, it represents a number of different things. For example, the male energy or your career, the way that you reach out into the world, and also how it might be connected to your purpose in life. And then the moon is reflecting that light, just as the moon reflects the light of the sun as each cycle is of a full moon is coming around. Sorry, my dog is distracting me. Um, Come, stop making all that noise, please. You stay here. All right, I think that might solve the problem. Um, and so where was I going with this? Yes, so just to say that this lunar family will highlight something of an issue that you're thinking about or that is coming to your awareness, coming to fulfillment, you could say, or perhaps even coming to a conclusion in the area of Sagittarius. So we'll look at that sign by sign. And now you can take your pen and take the dates. So this started on the 12th of December, 2023, and that was a moon that was a new moon in Sagittarius at 20 degrees, 40 minutes of Sagittarius. Um, and so here we have the full moon, notice, at the same basic degree point. Um, and then we had the first quarter moon that came from that. So we get the lunation, the new moon, and then the moon when it comes around to the point which is squaring that lunation point. That first quarter moon, when the sun is then squared by the moon, was on the 11th of September, 2024. So that was just last year. Feels like 10 years ago, but okay, just trust me, it was just last year, 11th of September, 2024, and that was at 19 degrees exactly, that first quarter moon. And then there's the full moon, which is now, and that's at 20 degrees. Here we can see that degree point here, 20 degrees, 39 minutes of Sag. And then the third quarter moon, this is where we can start to pay attention to the consequences or the effects of what we're realizing now in June. And that will be the 11th of March, 2026. And that is at 20 degrees and 49 minutes of Sag. Notice that these are all holding the same degree patterns throughout the cycle. And then that cycle will close on the 9th of December, 2026. So notice we're talking about a year and a half away. So it was a year and a half before that this cycle began. And that began, remember, 12th of December, 2023. And then now, a year and a half from now, the new cycle will begin, or the old cycle ends, the new moon of the 9th of December 2026 at, in this case, 17 degrees of Sag. So that's something to reflect on. Hang on, have I got the degrees right? Let me just double check that because I'm not so sure anymore. 17 degrees. That doesn't sound right. Yeah, 16 degrees and 56 minutes. Okay, never mind. That's, my memory's not so bad after all. So let's call it 17. And so what you want to do is think forward to March from this point, what you're realizing, and you want to realize by March how things have changed based on what you decided now, what you realize now in that area of life around Sagittarius and whatever the house represents for you. By sign, you'll find that out. And then once you start to calculate that and look back or look forward, if you're planning forward, then you'll know that this whole cycle will be wrapping up then by the end of 2026. So 9th of December 2026, the thing that began on the 12th of December 2023. So the full lunar family cycle is a nearly 3-year cycle. Let's call it 3 years. And so I wanted to give you those dates so you could reflect backwards in time, because that December 2023 activation will tell you a lot about what's going on with this thing about the Sagittarius area of life that you're realizing something about. So for me, as a Cancer rising, and we'll go through this sign by sign, but as Cancer rising, Sagittarius is the sixth house of everyday work and how you spend your time and how you organize your days and your health and so on. And I have realized that I need to cut back on certain aspects of my work and work in a way that's much more streamlined. That's also Mars in Cancer that helped me with that. And Jupiter now going into Cancer is helping to bring that forward in a way, hopefully, that's more healthy and less punishing than the Mars and Cancer version of that. And then going forward in time, I need to organize the way that I work in such a way that it supports my health as well. Because already by December 2023, I was seeing way too many clients and having to just really grapple with my schedule constantly. So this isn't sustainable. So here, this is the lesson for me that I'm realizing at this point. For you, it'll be something different, and we'll look at that sign by sign. Right, what else is going on? So what's very interesting is that this full moon is effectively coinciding with the Jupiter-Saturn square, which comes up just a few days later. Actually, before we go to that one, that's on the 15th, but I just want to go day by day and show you what else is happening. Let's just start it this way. Just to say that you have also, within this moment in time, there's a lot of other activity that's coming up. In terms of, for example, the Mars squaring Uranus, which is coming up almost simultaneously with the Jupiter square Saturn. And this is building up quite a lot of energy that can be potentially volatile. It can be inspiring, absolutely, especially on an individual level. There can be a new dynamic, a new desire for something to change. We do have Mars ruling Saturn and Neptune, as well as Chiron and Eris. So there's something about the Saturn-Neptune that is part of this new dynamic as well. On a global level, that can also be a bit problematic. So there's two things that are happening that are almost in a conflicting with each other energetically. And one of them is this Mars squaring Uranus. It's happening all through the week, really. It's building up through the week. A couple of days before and a couple of days after the lunation, let's say 5, even 6 days after the lunation. And so that's an energy that's present. It's just got the exact moment of the energy on the 14th to the 15th, where the square will be really at its peak of impact. Compared to what I said earlier about the weekend of the 6th to the 9th of June, I wouldn't want to be planning necessarily social events, maybe a rugby game or something on the 14th, 15th of June, because it's much more tense. It's not such easy energy to grapple with. Because at the same time as there's this Mars square Uranus, we also have Jupiter with Saturn squared. So it's complicated energy. There's a stop-go energy with the Jupiter Saturn. There's a realization around things that didn't really pan out. And by the way, that Jupiter and Saturn square following on from the Jupiter ruled moon in full moon in Sagittarius might also be a realization of, the thing that you thought you could do or that you wanted to stop or that you wanted to start or that you wanted to do differently at the Sagittarius full moon on the 11th. Maybe then with Jupiter being squared now or Jupiter now squaring Saturn, it might be like, well, actually, that's not going to work, or it has to be delayed, or there's something that has to change about that. It's a new way of showing that up. Um, What's also happening here is that by the 15th of, by the 12th of June, let's back up, we've also got the sun in a square to the nodal axis. And that's always an interesting dynamic because there's something that we're realizing with that energy of the sun in Gemini and maybe something that needs to be shared, something that needs to be addressed, spoken about, referred to. The sun is moving into a sextile with Chiron, and so there can be something over the week, let's say the middle week of June, that requires some attention based on either issues of healing or even issues of self-sabotage, which I associate Chiron with the way that we tend to mess things up for ourselves. And especially because Chiron is pretty much all that week also in a trine from Mars. It might be something about anger, assertion, aggression, or the actions that we're taking to achieve a particular goal. There may be some element of selfishness in there that we're only realizing because of all of these different shifts of that middle, let's say the second and into the third week of June. It can be very constructive, very, very healing. So not necessarily a problem. I want to just use the actual chart that I've created just so we've got this is the chart that is actually timed for the Jupiter-Saturn square, which is happening at the first degree, 17 minutes of the cardinal signs of Aries and Cancer, where Mars square Uranus is also happening, but it happened just before that. So Mars is had just now perfected the square in just hours before. So just to not show both charts, I'm just putting them together, but it's basically happening on the same day. It's for most people, it will be the 15th of June. For some of you in North and South America, for example, it'll be the 14th of June. But just give it a wide berth. Give it from, let's say, the 12th, if you want to live dangerously, 13th of June until about the 17th of June. And just know that those squares are active basically from the point of view of Mars, Uranus. It's till Mars moves into Virgo on the 17th. And so there's something there to reflect upon. Probably a good idea to slow down and reflect on things and not necessarily speak if you're not really, if you haven't really thought things through. That sun in a square to the nodes is also about trying to find your purpose or your sense of what this moment is for you. And this can be quite sentimental. We've got Mercury ruling both the Sun and the South Node, and Mercury is in Cancer at that point. So I think it's something from the 8th of June, Mercury moves into Cancer, and then on the 9th of June, Jupiter moves into Cancer. So this whole this journey, let's say through the second week of June, is quite dynamic, and there are a lot of things that might bring up some conflict around emotional issues or emotional reactions to things, things that feel very frustrating, things that feel unjust or unfair. Saturn, when it's squaring Jupiter, especially as Saturn is really strongly in detriment, Jupiter is strongly exalted. It's not an easy pairing, but Saturn is the slower moving planet, and so it kind of wins the battle, as it were. That's kind of how that works. The slower moving planet is considered the stronger one when there's an aspect. But we still have this opportunity to just reflect on things without necessarily taking action. I think it's a risky time to start new things. If you want to just, really dive into something new around the middle of June, I would expect that things would require a lot of adjustment over time because there's a lot of things that are causing tension. And normally you don't want to have a natal chart, or let's say an event chart, that you're striving to create something new with this much tension built into it. It's not ideal. Although I've seen some crazy wedding charts that also have strange tensions built in and they work out fine. So that's only a guideline. It's not necessarily written in stone. You might find it easier by the sort of following week. If you want to start something else, then start it at the new moon that's coming up in Cancer. You wouldn't have long to wait. So just a week after that, you'll find much better aspects because that new moon is also conjoined by Jupiter, which is exalted. So all the better. And the moon is in its own sign. So much, much better. So I'll do another video on that. Right. I think that's all I want to say about this one. I just want to come back now to the Sagittarius full moon, and all to say that really it's a brilliant opportunity for you to recognize things that need to change based on what I indicated in terms of the dates that I've already provided, and also to notice that there are going to be some hiccups, let's say, around this time. So what you're realizing might be something that you're already aware of. It's not necessarily going to jump out at you for the first time, but there is a solution to whatever it is. Jupiter is in its best dignity in Cancer, and this is accompanied by Mercury, where Jupiter and Mercury together bring good results. And I can't remember what day they'd conjoin exactly. Let me just check. Sorry, we have to back up to find out when they conjoin exactly. Yeah, so the 9th of June, when Jupiter first moves in, I guess it's the 9th to the 10th of June. That makes sense. So 9th, 10th June, you can already start to reflect on what's going on that is going to be exposed, or you're starting to really become clear around this full moon energy. Also, because the moon will already be in Sagittarius at that point, and you'll find solutions. Jupiter and Mercury are fantastic for finding positive, optimistic solutions. Mercury will be squaring Saturn, will be squaring Neptune, and conjoin Jupiter. So also be careful that, again, it's not about over optimism or being unrealistic about things. I think that's quite helpful, in fact, that Saturn is baking in this square to the the Jupiter Mercury conjunction, because Saturn will sort of ask questions. And also the fact that it's so close to Neptune at this point will also um, slow down any delusional thinking, let's say. So again, Saturn, stepping in just when we need him. We need Saturn. It's a very helpful dynamic of restriction, reality check, looking at things from a pragmatic place, not necessarily preventing things from happening, but asking the right questions to make sure they happen and they're durable. Let's see. I think that's all I wanted to say about this. It's a busy time. We do have, as I mentioned at the very beginning, Venus is now really happily in her own home for the first time since she moved into Pisces back in, I think it was the 3rd of January. It feels like so long ago, but yeah, so for basically the first 5 months of the year, she went between Pisces and Aries, and now she's finally, as of the 6th of June, in Taurus again. her happy place, and she'll stay there until I think the 4th or 5th of July. So we've got a good month, let's say, Venus in really strong dignity with Jupiter at the same time in a beautiful exaltation. And it's a good time to enjoy what June brings, at least in the northern hemisphere. This is spring. This is a time for optimism and planning ahead and expanding into life. And I do hope you can all take advantage of that. So let's go sign by sign. I'm actually going to back this up so we can find, so we'll lose the lunation just so we can get Aries here on the ascendant. And this will be then for Aries, Sun, Moon, and Ascendant sign. So, as always, that's in the description box below. I do recommend that you listen for all three. It's important because we are very multifaceted individuals, and to listen only for the Ascendant gives a much more flat, sort of two-dimensional vision of your life, excluding the purpose and this, the solar aspect of life, and excluding the emotional, more intimate, and also intellect, mental space that you bring to your own life. Right. So Aries, you of course have Saturn and Neptune in your sign now, to join up with Eris and Chiron that have been in a conjunction now for the last couple of weeks. It's a long-standing conjunction, but they are separating at this point. They'll come back and conjoin again in, I think it's October, when Chiron is retrograde. So you're off the hook for now. But also think in terms of this square from Saturn, let's say in your first house, to Jupiter now in your fourth house. So there may be something that you're reflecting on that is just you're not ready for it, or you're not sure you're up for it. Saturn in Aries can feel like a bit of a Debbie Downer. It can feel like I'm not so sure how to do this. I need to struggle a little bit to do this. I'm maybe lacking confidence or a feeling of lacking support. And when Jupiter goes into the fourth, it feels like I want all of this. I want this to happen now. I want this to move forward. And given that Mars, your ruler, is in the fifth house, this may have something to do with children or family, especially because Venus is now very strongly dignified in your second house. And Uranus, of course, is still there, God help you, in your second house of family and your values and what you value and your finances as well, the money that you have on the table, and your whatever you bring to the table as well. So it could be very busy or very positive around family issues, expanding family, more children, for example, or issues that surround children. But if not, if this is not about family, then it can also be because the fourth house where Jupiter is about home. And this is why I say that it's about home and lineage and where you settle into your family of origin, or you're creating your family moving forward. So the second house vision of the family is more like how do you engage with them? How do they support you? What is the dynamic there? This is actually quite constructive. But the fifth house, where your ruler is, where Mars is right now, squaring Uranus back to that second house, might mean that there's something about children or a dynamic within the aspect of children. Or again, if it's not about children, some project that is underway, something that you're dealing with that you want to create, a business, for example, or a creative endeavor. Um, this would be something you're having to reconsider. Now, Mars is also trining. Um, it's still really partile. It's just separating from a partile trine to Chiron. So there may have also been something about where you may have felt like you've missed an opportunity, or you may have felt like you didn't quite know how to tackle an issue, or you may have jumped in too soon, too enthusiastically, and you weren't quite ready. Both the Saturn squaring Jupiter, as well as the Mars trining Chiron, Mars being your ruler, super important, and then the Mars in a square to Uranus, it might be that something just comes up. There's a roadblock, there's something that is unexpected that you have to deal with at this time, and it's not necessarily, it's not a showstopper. It's something that is going to take you perhaps in a new direction, or take you a little bit longer to get to where you're going. So the moon is up in your ninth house. It's not the happy place for the moon, it has to be said. The moon is not moon is a bit restless in Sagittarius. And in the ninth house, there can be also an over optimism or an over idealism around things, and kind of a desire, a need to feel good about things all the time. This is going to be difficult at this time simply because there's so many things that are holding you back at this time. And it's, again, it's not a no, it's something that needs your attention. And it needs your attention, specifically Aries, because Saturn is there, which is the main issue here. The Saturn squaring Jupiter is the main issue here. So this is something you want to pay attention to that is maybe slowing you down or maybe having you change course in terms of what it is that you're planning, whether it be around children or around love, by the way. It could be around love. It could be a romance that comes in and it's like, oh, wait, I thought this was going to work out. And then there's something that's coming. But it, again, it's a glitch. It's not something that is a long-term thing. It's something that's a little bump in the road. Deal with it, move on. But maybe also take a breath, take a couple of breaths actually, and reflect on what might need to change, especially with reference to your higher vision of life, your purpose. The overall purpose. So think in terms of the long term, like why am I here? Why am I doing all this stuff? Rather than think about the short term gain of it, because this will also help you find the answer, the solution to where you want to go over time. Right. So make the most of this. It's lovely having Jupiter in your fourth, by the way. So Jupiter, of course, now in super strong dignity in your fourth house, where you emotionally are going to feel much more settled. You're going to feel much more positive, and that's a really great support because at least for the first year of Saturn going through your first house, you're going to have that feeling of it's all going to be fine. Because generally speaking, Saturn going in to the first house can feel frustrating, can feel like a lot of heavy lifting. So for whatever reason, you're getting lots and lots of support around that. This is very much going to fall on you, Aries, so reflect deeply on how you act in the world and how that's making a difference in how you see all of these different aspects of your life. Think in terms of your purpose, think in terms of how you want to go forward long term, and then listen back to the introduction where I gave you those dates to see how this lunation for you in the ninth house keeps reflecting something of what you need to learn at each stage of life. How do you need to expand your vision, your ideological or political or spiritual or religious sense of your life, and of course, your sense of purpose and higher purpose. All of this energy I'm describing here is in the three dharma houses, that the 1, 5, 9 triad here, which you have in fire, very inspired. That is the house of dharma is the purpose. So your sense of dharma is just, it's not just what am I here to do, but it's also what is necessary in this moment. So dharma has many layers, like every Sanskrit word has like 36 meanings, and it has many layers of meaning. So it's the overall sense of my reason for being here, but also what does this moment call for? So this would be an opportunity to reflect on that and to take you back to this ninth house, bigger vision for your life overall. Okay, Aries, good luck with that. I'll see you in the next video. Taurus, you have your ruler in your sign, and this is rather lovely because now, while you haven't seen your ruler in your sign since last year, and Venus has been going back and forth between your 11th and your 12th house, so there may have been quite a lot of goings on that didn't feel somehow settled for you. There may have been quite a lot of toing and froing with the energy being a little bit hidden from you or not so clear, something you couldn't really bring out and deal with. And now Venus is in your first house where she's quite happy. And this is also going to be making all of these different transits a little easier on you. There's going to be a feeling of, okay, I'm going to be fine. I feel comfortable, back to my happy place. The moon itself is happening in your eighth house, and that can be around issues that are a little bit private or personal, maybe issues of things you don't want to talk about necessarily with people, not necessarily comfortable exposing. This is also around taboo issues and also what you share with people, whether it be money or intimacy of either emotional or psychological or a physical sense of intimacy, something that you're realizing here, perhaps around a relationship. That can also be around a family relationship because we've got so many things going on that connect you back to family or siblings. Jupiter and Mercury are in the third house, which is ruled by the moon, which is the Cancer house. So the moon in the eighth is pulling the energy from the eighth into the third house, which it rules. And both Jupiter and Mercury represent, babies and children and pregnancy and family in general. And there could be something about an elder sibling or something about siblings in general or cousins or extended family. Jupiter also rules your 11th house of the elder sibling, but also friends and acquaintances and your vision for your future. It's something that may have come through a bit of conflict, especially as Mars was in that house for some time over the last few months. And then Mars moved into your house of home, family lineage, your family of origin, and your roots, but also your physical property, housing, for example, or land, or the immovable property. So there must be something here that has to do with any of those factors that might also represent issues around money that you're having to grapple with. Mars is trining Chiron, which is in the 12th house. So there may be some sense of also how to fit into all of this stuff and your own role in your notion of belonging. And this would, of course, depend on your natal chart, but there may be this feeling of no longer finding your place at this time or having to change and be different, perhaps even necessarily more assertive within the family dynamic, or also because that Mars is in a square to Uranus, there might be something that happens to you that is through you that you're wanting to change something or that something requires more attention or more energy in that fourth house domain. And that fourth house is with reference to how you feel about things as well as finding security, finding a place of what makes you feel settled and emotionally and psychologically secure and happy. Um, Mars is also ruling your 12th house where it's in that trine with Chiron. And then, of course, it's got the newly arrived Saturn and Neptune almost conjoining each other in your 12th house, which are themselves squaring Jupiter from being squared by Jupiter from your third house. So there's something here maybe about family far away. The eighth house moon also can suggest something to do with loss around a family member, loss of someone important, a saying goodbye that can be a final goodbye. Again, it's not to say that this is going to happen to everyone, but this would be one of the potentials where something happens in a way that is completely unexpected. That again, it's not necessarily true for everyone, and it would depend on your natal chart, but this is what that signature represents. It's just because the moon in the eighth is about those big transformations in life, the birth, death, longevity house in the eighth, and then Mars in the fourth, ruling Saturn and Neptune up there in the 12th with Chiron and Eris also conjoining. Uranus itself in your first house has been there for a very, very long time. And this is one of the last lunations, in fact, that you're going to have with Uranus in the first house. So there's something here that maybe is also with the dynamic here of the square from Mars. Maybe there's something that you realize it's about you that needs to change around what you need to feel secure or what you need to feel connected within the greater whole, the global family, or within your intimate family, and recognizing that this might be an opportunity to communicate better, to reach into more of a bonding or a connection with family. I'm thinking about other aspects of this. You're just before the actual lunation perfects, Venus, your ruler, is in a square to Pluto up in the 10th as well. So that can also bring about a dynamic of a need for recalibrating relationships in general. And that would be coming from your side. It's something that you want to do. You're motivated to do it. This is already happening on the 10th before the lunation, the full moon. I think we've got it here for Taurus. I think that's pretty much it. But it's definitely it's an opportunity for you to see yourself with a fresh vision for yourself, communicating in a way that feels more easeful, and that would be very harmonious for you as well if you find that solution. Yeah, that's the other aspect I forgot to mention. For the general, there's going to be a Venus sextiling Mercury. I'll do a post on that perhaps, and then people will see that coming just before the lunation. Venus is sextiling Mercury, which is a beautiful aspect. If you have something that needs to be said, if you need to express yourself to your family, for example, or to friends and people that you care for, it's a great time to do that. So Oh, by the way, the moon obviously in the eighth house also represents the occult, all aspects of occult things. So if there's some aspect of this that you're realizing about yourself, especially as Saturn, Neptune, Chiron, and Eris are all in your 12th house, there may be some real urge now to go deeper into your occult wisdom or open up your gifts and talents in the occult, that are already there. Perhaps that's also the support you're getting from the Jupiter Mercury, where you're starting to realize, actually, I can channel or I can do all of these things, and I'm not shy about it anymore. Um, right. So good luck with that, Taurus. I'll see you in the next video. Gemini, this is happening in your opposite sign in the house of relationships, open enemies as well. So your opponent, you could call it opponent. Let's not say open up enemies, but let's say the person across the table from you, the person you negotiate with for various things. And so the lunation in the seventh is showing you something about your relationship dynamics. As Jupiter is ruling that from the second house and it's in its strongest place of exaltation, this can also bring you some good dynamics and good fortune in business if you want to negotiate around a business colleague. Now, again, listen to the dates that I provided in the very beginning. Those dates you might find relate to issues around business relationships. It can be marital partners, obviously, too, or important, really important one-on-one dynamics. It can be around clients, for that matter, how you earn your money. Is it time to fire clients? I've done that. Is it time to, work with people in a different way? Um, and also, again, if it's about a career-related thing, it's great. There's something that's really, really helping you here with the Jupiter in the second, ruling your 10th house of career, the dynamics of how you show up if you're not, let's say, working any longer. Let's say you're independently wealthy or you are retired or whatever and you're not working. Well, this is anyway how you show up out in the world. That's the Jupiter ruled 10th house. Pisces, where the North Node is now. And Jupiter in the second house is really focusing in on your sense of value, what you bring to the table, but also the money that you have, the stuff that you might possess, but also how you spend money, how you manage money. And here we've got that moon ruling the second house from the seventh. So there may be some issues around the money story with partnerships in general. Also, because Saturn is squaring that Jupiter from your 11th house of the money that you earn from the things that you do, the business, for example, if you're a business owner or if you're an independent, that's your money that comes in. The second house is earned income from employment, or money that you're sitting on, or money that you invest, your money that you have to play with, let's say, what's available to you. But the 11th house is the gains from your career. And Saturn is in there, so you've got to get serious about this in some way. And for whatever this particular story is telling you, whatever you're realizing, there's a reason for taking a pause because Saturn squaring Jupiter, it's asking you to slow down a little bit. So a good time to question some things. Mercury, your ruler, is also ruling the South Node in your fourth house. So we know that more of your attention is going to your public life or to your career life or to your sense of your achievement and what you want to be known for or the personal ambitions that you have. And since Jupiter is with Mercury, it's a super favorable time right now for planning forward, for connecting on all of these topics, for reaching out into new negotiations or connections with people. Do be careful. Venus is in your 12th house. She's in really strong dignity, so that helps. But that is the house of loss. So when Venus goes into the house of loss or potential secrets as well, there may be something there that requires more of your attention. So be sure that you pay attention to that story. And also on the 10th, Venus and your ruler Mercury were sextiling. So again, that can be very favorable, some really interesting dynamics. Um, but your ruler also just a couple of days before that was squaring Neptune. So there may have been some confusion around these issues around finance or friends and what friends are bringing or not. Um, let's see again. So yeah, Mars in your third house, that's contracts and that's your the agreements that you make in a in terms of exchanges of all kinds, dynamics, and how you might want to speak about things or relay information, connecting with people in your neighborhood. Teaching is another aspect of the third house, as well as learning skills. And that Mars is ruling not only your house of everyday sort of work and your job and your obligations to people and things and the commitments that you have, as well as your health, but Mars is also ruling that 11th house that's where Saturn and Neptune are with Chiron and Eris up there. Mars also at this time of the full moon is in a trine, forming a trine back to Chiron. So there may be something you're realizing, perhaps the way that you spoke about something, perhaps the way that you communicated something, or the way that you decided something, which is a little impulsive, let's say, it could have come out the wrong way, it could have come out a little bluntly. This might be what you're having to grapple with right now and what to do about that. And this might be what is also part of the concern at this time. Don't worry about that too much. So the sun is moving through your first house. So if this is around your birthday, for example, if you have your birthday in the second week of June, your sun will be squaring the nodal axis. So there's a big desire for change in terms of yourself, or maybe how your work work aspirations or your career or your purpose is evolving. And it's an opportunity to see how you need to reflect on yourself in a different way. And that again may be something to do with partnerships. Again, not, it could be marriage type partners, but it can also be business partners or client relationships if you work in that dynamic. Seventh house is contractual relationships of all kinds. So, again, that can be business partners or it can be clients of some kind, and of course, marital partners as well. What else is happening here? Well, I need to see your natal chart to probably describe more about this. This Mars squaring back to Uranus. Again, it may come with some surprises where it might help you actually reveal something of unconscious motivations. That's the story of Uranus that's been there in your 12th house for a long, long time. And you may only now be realizing that certain unconscious drives or motivations have been a part of this bigger story of whatever it is that you're aware of in the relationship sector, and especially going back over the last 2 years. So good luck with that, Gemini. I'd say with Jupiter in your second house, the one other thing, especially as your ruler is there, just as Jupiter moves in there, just be careful about spending, especially with Venus in your 12th. So there may be a temptation to be very generous or, buy something that is not necessary or that you may find it's a big expense. Now, it's not to say that you shouldn't do it, but I would, for example, do not take credit at this point. Don't take money out if you haven't got it in the bank. Don't take out a loan. Don't take out, don't borrow from friends for sure. With Saturn and Neptune in your 11th house with Chiron and Eris. Also there with Mars in the third, do not borrow money from friends. And if you want to see it again, don't loan money to friends at this time either. Right, so good luck, Gemini. Sorry to leave you on the bummer note, but in general, it's a pretty good time for you, especially if you're opening up to a new career or a new vision for your role in the world. It's all pretty good. So just a hiccup at this time and otherwise very positive full moon for you. All right, see you in the next video. Cancer, this moon, your ruler, is in the sixth house of work. And of course, this is going to reflect something to do with how you work. What's your day-to-day schedule like? How do you put in the effort? Are you putting in the effort? Now, here with Jupiter in the first house, you might feel now there's more capacity, or I want to do more. I want to reach more fully into my purpose, especially as Jupiter rules the North Node that's moving through your ninth house of purpose. And Saturn has you very serious about your career and all of that busyness that has gone through for the last few months between that ninth and 10th house as Venus has been going through there, Mercury went through there, and of course the nodes went through there, and now Saturn and Neptune are going to continue going back and forth between your ninth and 10th. And the reason that that's so important is because now Jupiter is in your first house where it's exalted. And this is your, I've done other videos on this, so do watch the videos on Jupiter entering into Cancer. And this exaltation is going to have you feeling like now is the time to grow. But Saturn in the 10th is actually quite helpful in the sense that it's going to make you realize that there's a bit of a mountain to climb to get where you want to go. So you're going to take it seriously. And the moon in the sixth house can actually be very helpful, especially if you look past the in this lunar family since December 2023, and then you forecast forward and you plan yourself going into March and then going into next December 2026, you'll start to see that there's going to be this outcome based on what you decide now. So again, listen to the introduction if you haven't to hear more about that. So all in all, a really favorable time for Cancer because of this Jupiter moving into your first house, the greater benefic, there with a really beautiful energy to bring new starts. And then you're going to have your new moon following this full moon. So the next lunation is the Cancer new moon on the 24th of June. So you're really preparing for something quite important. Venus is also in the 11th house of gains, from income that of things that you do, the work that you do, or the way that you reach out into the world. And Venus will also bring you some support from people and that you might encounter, networks of friends, networks of colleagues, um, just acquaintances in general, and also Venus in the 11th house shows you a fresh new impulse for your vision for the future. Venus rules your house of the home, where you live, where you feel comfortable, what makes you happy, because Venus rules Libra as well. And so these two houses are benefited by Venus being in the 11th house, which she also rules. So the 11th and the 4th will be highlighted because of that Venus. And because Jupiter is in your first house, your sixth house of work and your ninth house of purpose will be highlighted while it's in your first house. So this is a really great opportunity with the moon in your sixth house to really start to see how does my day-to-day life affect me in terms of my health, in terms of my rhythm, um, realizations around my obligations and any difficulties that need to be dealt with. Mars has been in your second house since the 18th of April, and it will stay there until the 17th of June. And when Mars is in the second house, there can be issues around money, issues around expenditure, more focus on money. Mars rules the 10th house, so there can be this whole story around income, or it can be around your values and do the values support the thing that you want to do. Mars is also in a trine to Chiron at this time, at the time of the full moon, and it's ruling Chiron. And so there's something here also about finding ways of feeling more dynamic in terms of what you bring to the table, in terms of what you want to earn, in terms of what you can produce financially, or the way that you deal with your values and bring them into your career, for example. All of that is there supported. The Chiron is also part of the signaling around where you may not be taking the right action. The Mars in Leo will actually help you take the action based on what is in your self-interest. And so that can be very helpful too. So really quite positive for Cancer. Um, And so the moon in the sixth house can have this a very strong flavor of obligation. And this is not necessarily a bad thing at this time because then you can also start to parse out what you really genuinely feel is your duty, what you need to do, and what is good to do, what's a better thing to do. So all in all, really very positive for Cancer. And do be sure to listen to the video that I did on Jupiter entering into your sign because it's going to tell you a lot more about that. Um, right, and yeah, and Pluto's in the other money house as well. So we've got the money houses are 2, 8, and 11. And Pluto is in the eighth house squaring Venus or being squared by Venus. So there may be something of a new awareness around money and how you receive it, and what you need to do about that, how you need to value it or how you need to manage it, how you need to take action. That's the Mars word. Um, so how do I need to take action? Mars is squaring Uranus, so there may be something unusual that happens that can be related to finance. It could be related also to an elder sibling. The 11th house is an elder sibling, or it could be around friends or around your vision for the future. Um, what else have we got here? I think I've said it all. Yeah, so if something's coming up that you plan, you want to do, got all this big vision, really feeling like oh, ready to go, just know that Saturn by mid-June is going to be in an exact square. The whole second week of June essentially is Saturn squaring Jupiter, and it stays within an orb already all through most of June. So it's just about the perfection of the aspect. So Saturn squaring June is Saturn squaring Jupiter through June is actually a message around taking your career seriously or taking your social status seriously. Saturn rules your house of marriage and your house of partnership, and of course that eighth house also, the shared resources. So something along the lines of what you need to do to manage your aims and ambitions at this time. Uh, so all in all, I mean, this is a very favorable full moon in general. The aspects are very good, but there is, the hiccup and one or two hiccups here that are very difficult to predict, very difficult to know exactly how that's going to pan out. But just know that it's something that will bring you more clarity, especially the Saturn squared in Jupiter, because when you really put your nose down and focus on what you want to do, you'll get to where you want to go. So yeah, think of Saturn as being helpful in that sense. All right, Cancer, I'll see you in the next video. And Leo, your sun obviously is part of this lunation because the sun in opposition to the moon is what makes a full moon. And the sun, your ruler, is in the 11th house of your vision for the future, while the moon is in the 5th house of love and creativity and children, what you'd like to create overall. In general, how you might want to take a risk on things, so not necessarily a bad thing. And having an opportunity to see what's coming up around those topics, it might be something you need to pay attention to with reference to where you want to go overall in your life. Because also Saturn with Neptune is in your ninth house now, really getting you clear on your bigger purpose in life, what you really have faith in, what you really believe, what you think is important, paring that down, getting clear around what you want to achieve out of, in this vision that you have for yourself in this lifetime. And especially since your ruler is in the house of your future vision, your sense of this, what's next, what's coming. It's a good opportunity to reflect on how can I bring more of that joy, happiness, creativity, and inventiveness into the mix here. Mars in your first house, where it's been since the 18th of April, is also in a square to Uranus in your 10th house. So there may be something about the dynamic that you're bringing to the table, the things that you've been doing that are going to be influenced by a change of plan or a change of, I don't know, structure in that 10th house sense of your aims and achievement. 10th house is social um, influence, or it's how people see you. It's a place of your social status overall. Are you married? Are you not married? It's your professional ambitions and aims as well. So you might be feeling like, okay, at this time I've done all this stuff, and now actually it doesn't mean anything anymore, or it's not what I want anymore. And especially as Mars is in a trine to Chiron, Chiron in the ninth has also been having you question your purpose, having you question what you have faith in, having you question your role models. Have you been able to find decent role models? It's not really easy with Chiron in the ninth, and now especially with Saturn going in the ninth. What it is really having to find your way, find how you go forward, and not necessarily expect role models to be guiding you. You might find yourself becoming that, with Saturn in the ninth. Initially, there can be disappointment in the people you look up to and expect help from. And over a while, you start to realize, no, wait, I got this. I can do this. So this can also be a part of that. Maybe the Uranus aspect of this is saying, wait, you all this time you thought you needed more, and here you are. I find that often with Leo, especially Leo rising, that there is this sense of the ego is strong, but in the negative sense, it's a sense of not being good enough. And especially if there's been really strong issues around father figures, which is classic with Leo, where there's a feeling of inferiority that drives attention seeking or that drives ambition. And here you can start to question all of that, especially with the trine to Chiron. Venus is in the 10th. She's in a really strong position because she's at home in your 10th house. So that's extremely favorable in terms of this vision that you have for your career or how you reach out into life in general. And Venus also rules your third house of what you communicate around or what you bring to the table or, how you connect with people, whether it's your siblings and extended family or friends, local space, like people that you relate to day, your bus driver, people you have coffee with, and that kind of thing. But it's also about education. And so this is again maybe part of that dynamic about realizing that you actually can bring something out into the world in a way that you weren't so sure of before. And that's also the fifth house. Moon education is in the fifth house. It's a house of students. It's a house of what we kind of understand. We just know, and it's not necessarily clear why we know what we know. But especially because you've got Jupiter with Mercury at this time in the 12th house, there's a lot of intuitive awareness that you're getting at this time. And Jupiter is ruling your 8th house as well, where we also find the North Node. So there's a lot of you, Leo, that is being brought to your intuitive self. And this can be a really beautiful moment to understand that, understand this bigger dynamic of how you engage with this much deeper aspect of yourself. And this can also be something to do with long distance travel because 12th house is not only faraway places, but it's foreigners in general, people who are far away, also potentially people who have passed. And we also have Saturn, Neptune, along with the Chiron and Eris up in your ninth house, also about long distance travel or traveling with a purpose, traveling like pilgrimage, conferences, and so on. So there may be some aspect of what you're doing that is going to benefit from a bit of travel, especially once the sun, your ruler, moves into that 12th house. That can be especially true. Good time to plan some travel for learning. Right. I'd have to see your natal chart to see any more about that, Leo. But I mean, all in all, pretty good. The Mars in your first house will be there until the 17th of June, so a week after this lunation. Then it moves into your second house. So use this time around mid-June to, get that last burst of energy, pardon me, and figure out what it is that you want to do so you can make the best of this moment. All right, good luck. I'll see you in the next video. So Virgo, Sun, Moon, and Rising. Just a moment, Virgo. Cheers. The moon is in your fourth house. So this lunation is with the moon in Sagittarius in your fourth and the sun in your 10th house of career. And Mercury, your ruler, also ruling your 10th house, is with Jupiter, very, very strongly benefic in Cancer, in the sign of its exaltation in the 11th house. So there's something really interesting happening here that could also be reflected on in terms of where you live. Jupiter in Cancer, Cancer representing home and family, and the fourth house has a similar vibe, and especially as the moon is there. And also the the energy of the sun in the 10th, there might be something now showing up around where you live, and maybe that has an impact on your work or your marital status, your social status, especially as the North Node is in your seventh house of the other. So there's an opportunity now to spend more time on these issues of connecting with people, whether it be for your career or for personal relationships, the more special people in your life. And Jupiter in your 11th, ruling this lunation and also ruling your fourth and ruling the seventh, very important to think about the future. Think about social connections, think about your vision, the bigger vision that you have for life. And and also how the connection with Mercury can bring you some deep insights, some really interesting optimistic vision. It's in a square to Saturn and Neptune, which are both in your eighth house. So it could also be that there's something around either the gains from income, um, around the connection that you have socially with people, your vision for your future. There's something that is a little bit held back based on what you might share with other people. That could be, again, sharing finances or sharing intimacy, emotional, sexual, psychological intimacy in the eighth house. Or there may be something around personal hangups. That could be also true with the Saturn moving into the eighth. You're realizing something that is actually you're holding yourself back. And Chiron, particularly in the eighth house, also in a trine to Mars in the 12th, that could be part of that story. Mars is ruling your eighth house of that aspect of the hidden part of your life, and it's also in the 12th house, which is also hidden. So again, check where you might be holding yourself back. You don't want to miss the boat here because Jupiter in the 11th house in strong dignity like this is going to bring you great opportunities. Observe where your mind is perhaps part of the issue of what's holding you back. Mars rules your third house of the mind. It's where we find Black Moon Lilith at this time. So there's maybe something that you need to get off your chest, something that you need to say, something you're pissed off about. That's what my short form for Black Moon Lilith is what I'm pissed off about. So it could be something to do with this and this aspect of what may not even be particularly clear to yourself, by the way. So reflect on these things. That can be the benefit of having this delay of the square from Jupiter to Saturn. When I say delay, it's not guaranteed it'll be a delay, but it'll be something that it'll be your awareness. The fourth house is also your emotional nature. It's what makes you happy, what makes you feel grounded, what makes you feel settled. One of the reasons that Virgo is not settled and is often very restless and anxious is because Sagittarius is on the fourth house. So very difficult not to be anxious as a Virgo. I'm doing videos on this in terms for the beginner class, so we can understand these meanings of these signs, the deeper meanings of the signs. So notice this. What's holding me back? What's going on with me emotionally? Is that holding me back in terms of my greater vision, what I want to do, or is it holding me back in terms of my intimacy? Now, Uranus is also up in your ninth house, being squared by Mars in the 12th. So there may be also something that you're recognizing around foreign lands, long distance travel, people at a distance, um, that requires your attention. It requires your connection in a new way. For example, the Uranus being squared by Mars can be very deep insight or something, realizing I need to take action on this. I need to adjust something right now. Um, that also can be something that happens, in a way that is surprising. The ninth house can represent fathers and father figures. Um, Mars ruling the third house can represent siblings, so there may be something that's going on in terms of the family dynamic, especially as the moon is in the fourth as well. Um, and ruled by Jupiter in the 11th, elder siblings particularly. So so this could be something like news comes to you and that you realize something needs to be done about that. Now, Venus is in strong dignity at this moment, up in the ninth. So I also think that, especially because the two benefics, Jupiter and Venus, are very happy at this time, and they're at the top of your chart. I think you're going to find solutions to this. So it might just be like shocking new information, or it's actually coming from you as well, a new sense of purpose. I don't want this anymore. I've done this thing and I don't want it anymore. Um, right. So I'm going to leave it at that, Virgo. Too many options. It's very difficult to do these in a general sense because it's very difficult to because I don't see your chart, obviously. So it's there's so many potential possibilities, but I'm just giving you a bunch of them. They won't apply to all of you. And I will see you in the next video. So Libra, this lunation's happening in your third house, which happens to be the joy of the moon. And so you've got a very happy moon ruled by a very happy Jupiter in your 10th house. So there might be something that you are realizing about your career or about your social status or your parents, for example, 10th house is parents, um, that actually brings you some happiness that can bring you a sense of connection or engagement with people in that third house way, which is about dynamic communication, maybe learning something, realizing something that connects you to extended family, to your cousins, your siblings, friends, obviously, as well. That's your local space, your neighbors, your everyday friends, your coffee pals. Um, And then, of course, your ruler is also in really strong dignity. She's in her sign, Taurus, for the first time in forever. And especially because she's spent since January, so 5 months, Venus was going back and forth between your sixth and seventh houses. So now Venus is in your money house, the eighth house, the where you receive from others. And whatever the hardship was that you've been going through with these last 5 months, trying to figure out the dynamics between what you give and what you receive in terms of the give and take of relationship and maybe work, you're getting the payoff now. There's something that's showing up here. For you, you want to pay attention to that third house where the moon is. This is where I mentioned in the very beginning to observe these dates 2 years back and 2 years ahead to understand what's going on, or let's say 18 months back and 18 months ahead, to understand what's going on in this cyclical way around this particular group of lunations. Something here around a choice as well. The third house represents our aims and the choice to be made. And the sun is up in your ninth house of your vision for your life, your sense of purpose. And Mars itself is in the house of your long-term vision, the sense of what the future will hold. Mars is trining Chiron in the relationship sector. And so there may be something you're realizing around the relationship dynamic and what needs to change based on what you'd like to achieve or see happen in your future. And that's been a story for a while, but it's especially true around this lunation. So there may be something that needs to be spoken about, something you need to communicate. Nonetheless, it's all really very positive. It might also be something about work because Jupiter from your 10th house is ruling your sixth house of work, where we find the North Node. There might be some contractual negotiations or things that are happening that you need to renew or you want to establish. And again, go back over these last cycles of this lunar family to understand from December 2023 what this story is showing you. This is the culmination of that story. Not necessarily the end. It's the culmination. You're realizing, it's about this. This is the thing. It's a very important time for you right now to reflect on these things about either marital issues or your parents or about your career dynamics, your ambitions in general. And also Mars is squaring the Uranus, squaring Uranus, yeah, from your eighth house, again representing intimacy, where now Venus is adding a bit of dignity to your eighth for the next month, basically. So your ruler in the eighth house, making you maybe feel more at ease with intimacy. But yet we've got the square from Mars back to Uranus. So something can happen with reference to family secrets, things that are surprising, unexpected, um, that require maybe some attention to the issue, or it might be something worldly, globally that's happening because also Jupiter and Saturn are on the world point, and you've got Jupiter at the top of your chart, and Mars is in the 11th house, which is society. So there may be something that's happening out in the world that's affecting you that you have to grapple with. Um, and that Saturn also is in your 11th, in your seventh house is being squared by Jupiter at the same time. It's happening on the 15th, but it's actually quite active already around the moon. And that Saturn squaring Jupiter, or Jupiter rather squaring Saturn, is an maybe again a need to reassess a relationship or the obligations and duties of some kind of important relationship. It could be something contractual, like a, colleague or a client or marital partner, and you're having to reassess that. It's not the end of the world. It's just something that needs your attention at this point. To fulfill the 10th house expansion and desire that Jupiter is bringing, there's some obligation to another person that you have to deal with. But for Libra, Saturn does really well. Saturn is your exaltation ruler, so usually you've got a way to figure these things out. So I wouldn't sweat it too much. I think we've got the whole thing here. There's a lot more that can be said, but I'm going to leave it there. Just one thing, your ruler has been squaring Pluto in the days leading up to the lunation here. And Pluto is in your fifth house of love, romance, creativity, children. And of course, Venus has just moved in 2 days, what is it? 5 days before this lunation. Venus moved into your eighth house of intimacy. So there could be a whole new dynamic in terms of relationship, and you're finding now it's more of a time I'm ready to commit. This could also be part of that story, the bigger story, especially as Mars um, ruling the seventh might show you a bigger dynamic also of how you are engaging in relationships and what your fears may have been, how your fears may have been holding you back, um, or otherwise, contributing in a way that wasn't good for you in relationships. I'd need to see your own chart, but if it's Libra, it's about relationships for sure. That's part of the story. I'm finding the harmony part is the Libra challenge. Um, I think that's it. Yeah. So focus on that healing, this notion of Chiron here from the trine to Mars. It's think of your future, how you are stepping into relationships or stepping out of them potentially as well, in a way that is going to bring you the long-term goals that you want based on your values, because Mars is ruling your second as well. Um, that's it. I'm going to stop there, Libra. I could go on and on, but the problem is I don't know your chart. So there we are. All right. Have a good one, Libra, and I'll see you in the next video. And Scorpio, this lunation is in your house of money, the second house, and it also represents family and what supports you in general, your possessions as well. So all the stuff that you have that supports you. And there might be something here that you're realizing about all of those different things. And especially as it's in opposition to the sun in your eighth house, there may be something about how you share money, what's coming through that, or how others might be expecting you to bring things to the table. Jupiter is in your ninth house. It's ruling the second house of resources and money, as well as ruling your fifth house of love, children, creativity, and so on, where we find the North Node as well. So there may be something around that notion of money and children, or money and projects, money and love, and how all of that is affecting you. And the second house is also how you spend money. So there may be an awareness around how you're spending. And again, this is if you go back over that cycle that I mentioned, beginning December 2023, listen to the introduction for that. This could tell you a lot about something to do with how you spend your money, and is that working for you? Is this needing revision, let's say, in this particular lunar cycle? Mars is in your 10th house. Now, that's your ruler in the 10th house. Super ambitious time. Lots of focus on career, lots of focus on how to achieve your goals. And Mars is also trining Chiron in your sixth house of the everyday stuff. And it's also reflecting your health. In the sixth house, that's about health and illness, things that might affect your overall well-being. This is where we find Saturn as well, and now Neptune with Saturn in your sixth house. I think there's going to be a strong focus on your everyday schedule, how your life is impacting your well-being, because also Mars rules your sixth house. Observe your overall health habits, especially with reference to inflammation. And inflammation can come in ways that creep up that you're not aware of. Anger is a symptom of inflammation, for example. irritability, aggression, all those things are symptoms of inflammation. And so you've got Mars there in the 10th, having you really feel a strong push towards your aims or your goals or what you're perceived to achieve. And it's trining Chiron, so maybe you're starting to realize how those goals are linked to your health issues. You might want to scale that back a little bit. So with the moon in your second house, it also represents how you eat, how you nourish yourself. Second house is what you put in your body, like how you consume things, not the other way. That's eighth house. Um, what you eat, what you consume, um, and and this is something that might be also part of the story. Now, Jupiter is super favorable. It's loving being in the ninth house, and it's with Mercury also. So you might have some really neat insights also about visions for the future or your sense of purpose, a higher sense of self. Jupiter is trining your first house of self, and it also is the ruler of the North Node and trining that as well, or later in 2026, it will be trine no, it's before that. It's going to be trining the North Node in October. I think I'll do a video on that. I think it's October. We don't have to wait that long. Um, and so this could be a very creative time also. So notice that as well. Soon, your ruler, Mars, will be moving into the 11th house. That's as of the 17th of June. So then your focus will be really strongly on your vision for the future and what you want to achieve over time, but also connecting you to friends and connections through social groups and networks and so on that will pull you out into the world, into the sort of shared world of social connections. And the 11th house is also the house of gains from what you do. And there you'll find also, because of this dynamic of the fifth house being ruled by Jupiter now in strong dignity, where the North Node is as well, you might find that you're feeling ready to take more risks, more calculated risks, and reach out into a vision of your future that you um, have, let's say, refined over the last few months while Mars has been going back and forth between your ninth and 10th house. Um, Mars in the 11th, it's also about money that you earn from the thing that you do. And just notice that the way that you manage your Mars, depending on your natal Mars, that will tell us how, but the way that you manage your Mars can also be a little off-putting to other people. Mars in the 10th can even be a little bit too much. It might have people worried that you're, for example, too ambitious and trying to overtake their role or something like that. So yeah, anyway, do make the best of that. It's all in all some really interesting opportunities coming up for you. Also, yeah, Venus in your seventh house of relationship. Um, did I even tell you about this? I'm not sure now. I forget who I'm talking to now. So Venus in your seventh house of relationship brings a lot more harmony into relationships. It's very, very supportive for that. However, there is this square from Mars to Uranus. And the square from Jupiter back to Saturn, both of those two things may have you requiring a little adjustment in terms of how you actually relate to people based on the thing that you want to achieve or the vision that you have for yourself. Um, it's a glitch. Don't think of it as too much of a big deal, but it's definitely something that will need your attention in the middle week of June, all right, and not just at this lunation. But all in all, a really good time to think about your value, what you value, your money story, and how that all impacts relationships. All right, good luck with that, Scorpio, whoever you are. I'll see you in the next video. Sagittarius, this is your full moon, and so your opportunity now is to understand yourself and the impact that you're making on your life and how you're showing up in your life, and your ruler now, Jupiter, your ruler forever. Jupiter is currently in its exaltation sign in the eighth house where Cancer is. So this is a really wonderful opportunity to get to know yourself deeply in terms of your psychological sense of self, because Jupiter also rules your fourth house of your psychological foundation, your emotional foundation, your family of origin. And that's where the North Node is as well. So there's something here that you can learn from, that you can grow through, that is taking you home to yourself in so many ways. A realization around how relationships tie back to you and how your engagement in relationships can also impact your feelings, yourself, your sense of what you feel here for. Um, the because the moon also represents home, depending on your natal chart, there may be a desire also around what home feels like to you. Um, that can also be one of the possibilities, that there's something that you're realizing you want to change about home, especially as the North Node is in that fourth house for you. And Saturn isn't done with that fourth house. So Saturn and Neptune will both come back into your fourth house and then move back into the fifth house. So there can be something here around that. So Jupiter is with Mercury in the house of intimacy. Mercury is the ruler of your house of marriage and important relationship partners. Um, and so there can be something here around family issues. It's also because Saturn and Neptune are squaring that from the house of children. And so there's something here that needs to be reassessed, and that can also be considered the house of love and romance, where you create things from. This can also be coming from a deeper place. You're creating from a place of more deep intimacy. You're creating from a place of more deep awareness, or more occult type awareness, more just a sense of being at peace, perhaps with your lineage, with yourself, with the way that you show up in life. And especially as Mars is in your ninth house, where you've been putting a lot of attention since January, basically, on your sense of your higher purpose. And that's trining you. So you've been very dynamic around that. And Mars rules your house of children and your creative self-expression, and how you bring yourself out into the world. It's in a trine to Chiron there. So this has been a long period of time, many years already, of Chiron showing you issues around your connection to your children, or the notion of children, or the connection that you have to being who you are, how you show yourself up in the world, how you reach out into your creative impulses, for example. And now you're realizing with the Saturn, sorry, with the Mars up there in the ninth house, something about how you want to go forward in life. You're with this vision that you have for yourself that you've been creating for months already. So it's not a new thing necessarily, but that it's just now this is the opportunity to realize, oh yeah, it's been me doing that all this time. So you're actually having, it's interesting, this should land on your sign, Sagittarius. So just hours after the actual lunation, just what is that, like 5 hours after the lunation itself, um, we're no, maybe, yeah, more than 5 hours. But anyways, just after the lunation itself, there's a grand fire trine here between Mars and the moon in your first house, and Chiron there. So this is very relevant to you, I think, in terms of how you're aware of yourself, becoming more self-aware, aware of what you need, intimately aware of what you want to communicate, but also perhaps something to do with more of the inner experience of self. The eighth house is also it's a psychological house, and it refers very much to family as well, what we inherit, patterns that we inherit from our family. So there'll be a lot of awareness around that that can bring you a lot of benefit. This is something that can come through an intimate relationship as well, sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, psychological intimacy, um, and especially because the North Node is in the fourth house, which represents a lot of those dynamics as well. What makes me happy, what makes me feel secure. So there's going to be a much more grounded feeling for you at this time, especially compared to when your ruler Jupiter was in Gemini, which is not a very grounded sign and not an easy feeling. So this will help you to stabilize a lot of things, a lot of aspects of yourself, even if Jupiter technically is not seen by you. It's in a quincunx. It's in conjunct from the eighth house back to the first. It doesn't matter. It's still in strong dignity and it's still there. So that's one of the reasons why it's the psychological aspect of self, because the eighth house is kind of hidden from our awareness. So Now, Venus is also in the sixth house of everyday work, so that also can make that easier overall, a better feeling overall around work. And Mars is squaring from the ninth house back to Uranus in your sixth house. There may be something that you're realizing about your higher purpose, that you're realizing, okay, this now needs to change. My job is going to change. This whole story is going to change. My day to day is changing. And that's a bigger story. That's a long arc of the journey of Uranus going through your sixth, which will only finish up next April. So I've done other videos around this subject, and you'll also see another video on specifically Uranus coming into Gemini, and I'll talk about that in the next couple of weeks. Um, yeah, so there's a lot that you're reflecting on, and then when Mars goes into your 10th house, you'll find more of a sense of purpose and an ambition and a clearer aim. Mars also rules that fifth house, so you're going to bring some of that creative dynamic and the understanding of where you need to step up in this different way, on how you want to express your creative self in this different way. Mars also rules your 12th, which is also the hidden aspect of yourself. It's the life behind the eyes or behind the closed doors or overseas or whatever, the things that we don't see. So this is also part of that story of the dynamic of Mars in your ninth house, keeping that a higher vision for yourself. Alrighty, I think I've covered all the bases here for Sag. Keep looking up, Sag. I know you're supposed to be the optimist, and so many of my Sag friends and clients are saying, what the actual, it's just not easy. I get that. I totally get it. But this will 100% change the dynamic that you're experiencing. Think of life from the inside out. Don't look at the outer stuff to measure your happiness or to measure your sense of self. You have Pisces on the fourth house. That's the interior experience. It's meant to be something more spiritual. This is also why Sagittarius is considered more spiritual in general. It's because your inner experience of life is coming from Pisces. So now with Jupiter there in the eighth, that's going to also reinforce that. So that's what gives you the optimism, the endurance. And don't look at the material stuff. Look at where you're growing. And that's also the Sagittarius ambition over life. Growing in your spiritual self is a very important thing. All right. So Sag, I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now. All right, Capricorn. Yeah, so this is quite lovely because you've got Jupiter now in high dignity in your seventh house. You've had a bit of a crabby time with Mars having gone through the seventh house, and Mars is still there in your house of intimacy and shared resources and lots of, no doubt, negotiations and potentially frustrations around issues to do with your more intimate life or the finances, who pays for what, who does the dishes, all that stuff. And then also Mars ruling the fourth house, where there's been quite a lot of activity. So there may have been quite a lot of tension also internally, psychologically, where you feel, your stoic self, because that again, Mars ruling the fourth is one of the reasons that we've got such a stoic vision for Capricorn. It's like, I got this, I'm going to do this thing. Don't you worry about me. And that's because of the Aries. And now your ruler, Saturn, is there in the fourth house. It's being squared by this Jupiter. So something about relationship may be challenging your thing. That what about home? What about the relationship? What about the dynamic? It's a glitch. It's a tiny little thing. It's a blip. It's not going to be necessarily a deal breaker. I would, of course, need to see your natal chart, but it's going to be an adjustment. Some adjustment will be required. And that adjustment is going to bring you longer term gains. Um, when Jupiter and Saturn came together, were they still in Capricorn when they came together? 2020. I think they were. Or was it just at 0 degrees of Aquarius? Anyway, so this is part of that story. I think that was it. They were at 0 degrees of Aquarius, your money house, your family house. And now this is a story of adjustment based on the last 5 years, roughly. So that's it. And you're looking at this from the perspective of a very personal story because it's part of your angular your ruler is in an angular house, and that's a very personal story for you. So there's some adjustment. It may require a move, a physical move, moving abroad even, because the moon is in the 12th house at this time. That's where the lunation is for you at this time. And so at the very least, there may be some thought around where to live, how to deal with that. This could also be around your psychological self, especially as your ruler's in the fourth. There's going to be a lot of attention there for you for the next 2 or 3 years. And Mars, your exaltation ruler, is in the eighth house, another psychological house as well, ruled by the sun in the sixth. So there's something here about work or health. If this is about health, then first and foremost, think about your emotional health because we've got that Saturn, Neptune in your fourth house of what makes me happy. And Chiron has been there for a very, very long time. So with Mars in the eighth, you might be sort of realizing, especially since November, December, when Mars was in the eighth, and then again from when did that happen? From March, was it March 26th? I can't remember. March, end of March, when Mars moved in there again. That whole story of the eighth house has been churning a lot for you. Awareness of hidden stuff, awareness of family stuff as well. And so if you're dealing with health issues, go deep in, go into your emotional relationship to your life or to other people, and know that that's where the healing will come from. Jupiter rules your third house, also community, siblings, your friends, your everyday friends. So that also will improve. Can be cousins or extended family in the third house as well as just your pattern of thinking and how you communicate. So it also makes you much more apt to communicate better with people, to have a desire for more connection. There will certainly be a busyness around this time because of that Jupiter um, moving into your seventh house. So there'll be a lot of engagement with people in a general sense, and maybe in a specific sense in terms of partnerships of all kinds. Venus is in your fifth house of love. She rules the fifth house. Also, children, your creative self-expression. The fourth house is what makes you happy, and the fifth house is how you express that, how you do the happy. And it's really nice because now you've got this really lovely Venus in her happy place in a trine back to you. She also rules your 10th house of career or your social status. And so there might be something also that's connecting you through your children or through a romance or through a project that you're bringing to fruition that is also connecting you to that 10th house. Now, Mars from your 8th house is squaring Uranus in this 5th house, and Mars is also trining Chiron in your 4th. So there is this potential for surprise or something that is coming up now into your awareness that wasn't really that clear before. This is, although it's happening exactly on the 15th, this is a kind of an aspect that's long-lived, let's say. It's going over about 8 to 10 days where you'll feel that. So that is going to be an impulse for big change that can somehow have something to do with finances or how you share them, or children and how you connect with them, family and how you connect with them, or even literally home as well. This can also represent something to do with investments, or including around property investments. I'd have to see your chart to know that for sure. What have I forgotten for you? I think I've covered it all. Um, yeah, and I'll just briefly touch on Venus in the fifth, coming back to a square. She did the 10th of June already square Pluto, or maybe it was 9th to the 10th of June, squaring Pluto from the fifth house of your creative expression back to the second house of money, but also second house represents family as well, and fifth, of course, is children and lovers. So there may be some need for adjustment around those topics as well. It can also make you feel more comfortable with taking a risk, investing, or wanting to do some investing, and that also might be a dynamic that you're grappling with because of that Pluto in the second. It is retrograde, so that depends on your profile, financial profile. Mars in the eighth. squaring Uranus in the house of taking risks, that can be where you might end up with some, it can go both ways. Mars is your exaltation ruler, um, can go both ways. It might be good or bad. And Mars rules your 11th house of gains from your career. So, yeah, I don't know. If you know what you're doing, then you might feel that you're ready to take a risk on something. Um, a big risk for big gains, for example. Uh, Big risk also for big loss. So it's up to you. The Mars in a trine to Chiron, again, is that reflection on a deeper attitude to life and how your emotional nature, whether it's too reserved or there's maybe emotional insecurity or there's some kind of a healing that is required from family, from ancestry, because especially as the moon, this lunation is in your 12th, there may be something about lineage and ancestry that needs healing here. Um, this could be the opportunity that you needed to just have that push to understand why there's been this maybe long-term frustration or inability to access something emotional in you. So a really good impetus for that overall change. All right, Capricorn, make the most of that, and I'll see you in the next video. Aquarius, this is happening in your 11th house of gains. It's a lovely house of visionary house. This is why Aquarius is so visionary. It's because Jupiter rules your 11th. It's Sagittarius. That's like, big thinking, big ideas, big visions for the future. And now the moon is there. So the opportunity now is to think, well, what do I want and how do I want that to look? And again, go over the dates that I did in the introduction, and you'll understand why certain factors that are coming up right now make sense, and it's time to revise that vision. Now, it's ruled by Jupiter in your 6th house of work, and so there might be something to do with the work story. Especially as Mars has been going back and forth between your 6th and 7th, there may have been quite a lot about work that was requiring your attention, obligations and stuff. And now with Jupiter going in there, you might have a more optimistic take on the future, a bigger sense of, okay, I got this, it's going to be fine. And Jupiter in the 6th, especially in strong dignity, is going to give you a great capacity to overcome illness, to overcome issues at work, or find the job that you prefer. It's good for money because that hard work and the feeling of joyfully working, especially with the good Jupiter, um, it's the Jupiter is ruling your 2nd house of money where the North Node is. So it's both going to contribute to a sense of being connected through your values in terms of what you do, but also through income, how you earn your income. So all good. And then Saturn is now in your 3rd house. So your ruler, Saturn is now in your 3rd house. And the 3rd house is about relationships on a day-to-day level, your local space, as well as your extended family, like cousins and aunts, uncles, people like that. It's, of course, in a square to Jupiter. So Jupiter is from the 6th house, squaring back to the 3rd house. So there may be something that you need to decide or something that you need to learn, or you're realizing, oh, wait, I need this clarity around understanding something. I need to study harder. I need new skills to do this new thing that I want to do. The 3rd house can also be something that you need to learn on a personal level, or that there's something about communication, how you need to say something, how you need to express yourself in some different way. And that can also support the whole notion that Jupiter is trying to expand into through the 6th house. Um, Mars is also squaring Uranus from your 7th house of relationships back to your 4th house of your feeling of being settled or at peace with yourself, where you live, and so on. So there may be one last kind of frustration around relationships, but it's going to be eased in many ways because Venus is now also in your 4th house, and she rules that 4th house. She's there for pretty much a month, so from about the 6th of June until about the 5th of July, I think it is. So you've got a good month with Venus in her sign in your 4th house. Venus also rules your 9th house of your self, your vision, let's say, of your belief, your faith in life, your sense of purpose. That's all the Venus dynamic of Libra in the 9th. And so there's something that eases this tension, even though Mars is squaring Uranus, there's something that helps to ease that situation. So you might get surprises coming from family, from lineage, from relationships of all kinds. Mars also rules your third house, and it's in a trine back to Chiron in the third house. So there may be something around how you connect with people, just in a general sense, in your local space, or how you are relating to family, extended family, and what needs to change around that. Um, and of course, Mars is ruling your 10th house of career. So this is also where you might realize it can be with the Mars squaring Uranus, for example, a change in business relationship, partnership, or client relationship that may affect your overall sense of security. And it also can be even with reference to where I live because it's squaring back to the fourth house and ruling the 10th. So lots of big opportunities here for you as well. And that choice that's coming in the third house that Mars rules as well. All right, Aquarius, make the most of this. And I think I've covered it all. So I'll see you in the next video. Whoopsie, yes, Pisces. We have to do this a little different for Pisces because we only have a few minutes to move. Yeah, there we go. Now we've got Pisces on the first house. I have a dog who really needs to go and do her thing outside. Um, but Pisces, your ruler, Jupiter, is now trine back to you. Jupiter is in the fifth house, a very lucky house. It's also one of the Dharma houses. You have the North Node in the first. Now we have Jupiter in the fifth. And the ninth is the other Dharma house, a sense of purpose. So you're bringing more of you into what you do. And this is very fortunate. So Jupiter in the fifth is also ruling the lunation in your 10th house of your career. So the moon is the moon, this lunation, the full moon is in Sagittarius, which is ruled by Jupiter. So you're probably thinking in terms of your career, in terms of your social status, in terms of what you want as like an ambition. What's my next project? What's happened with the things that I've been doing for the last couple of years? Let's say the last 18 months. Do listen to the introduction. And so this lunation is showing you where you are in your career and how that's all going for you. Mars is in your sixth house, where it's been for quite some time. And you've been working hard. There's been a lot of dynamism around hard work, and it's now squaring back to Uranus in the third. So there may be now this realization of something that you want to choose differently, different awareness of what you know, what you might want to teach, what you might need to learn to get to where you want to go, how your everyday busyness, because of course Uranus going through the third since 2018 has had you chaotic and busy every day, has been impacting your health potentially because Mars is also in the house of health and illness. And also Mars is trining back to Chiron in your second house. Mars rules the second house where we also find Saturn and Neptune. So this is about money as well. How you manage your money. Is that working for you in terms of your career? What needs to change around those things? And then, of course, we also have your ruler Jupiter squaring back to Saturn in your second house. So your projects and your vision for what you want, um, how you want to express yourself, how you want to find more joy, more fun in your life, maybe take more risks in your life. How's that going to impact your sense of your everyday kind of income, the money that you have on hand, um, your possessions even, and also potentially your family. So this also might tie in with children, for example, whether you have them yet or not. This is a great opportunity to have children if you are Pisces, Sun, Moon, or Rising with Jupiter in the fifth house in very strong dignity, especially as it's your ruler. Um, so there may be a tie-in there with children, and there's something here that you're learning about in terms of the Saturn in the second. It's kind of like, well, slow your roll, don't go so fast. You don't want to do that yet, or this has to be taken care of. You'll need to organize this, that, or the other thing. Venus is your exaltation ruler, and she's now in the third house in her sign. And this is a great opportunity for teaching, for communicating, for connecting with people, signing engagements and contracts, connecting with siblings, extended family, neighborhood connections, and so on. So all really a good social time for Pisces, really, really strong. It's a good time to work seriously. And do think in terms of the long-term effect of all of this. The Jupiter in your ruler in the fifth house is with Mercury as well. And so you're getting lots of creative ideas, and lots of yeah, energy around children because again Mercury represents children. So Jupiter is like babies and pregnancy and the parenting aspect of children, and then Mercury is like the little bonbon, the kids, and the kids. And so that's another aspect of this again, if there's a story around children in your life. Um, and of course, the North Node in your first house, always this year, going forward into the middle of 2026, is going to include you and how you're focusing on yourself. Less focus on others and more focus on your needs. And so Jupiter in the fifth is a real invitation for you to express yourself in this very different way. And the fact that it's being squared or it's squaring back to Saturn and soon after Neptune as well, I'll do another video on that. It's just an opportunity for checking in where you are serious, where you're being too frivolous. And because Jupiter in the fifth, let's face it, especially an exalted Jupiter in the fifth, it can make some bad choices simply because there's just so much optimism and a bit of self-indulgence. That's the Jupiter aspect. That is the not so helpful aspect of Jupiter. And we don't want that, especially because Jupiter rules your 10th house of your reputation and also your career and ambitions and so on. So again, just saying. So the lunation here is really bringing something to you in terms of your vision for your ambitions at this time, and also how you are seen by the people around you, by the public, and how you participate in all of that. So bring yourself out, bring more of yourself out, and you'll find your joy around this Sagittarius full moon. Alrighty, thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.